Hello everybody, this is JonesRMJ here. During my 7 years of programming on Scratch, my first game on it, which was a recreation of the world's hardest game from addictinggames.com, has become the most popular Scratch program on my account. Ever since I created that project back in 2013, many people have asked me for a tutorial, so today I'll be showing you how to make one of the levels in the world's hardest game, just like in my project. I do recommend you have some slight experience in Scratch before attempting this tutorial so you understand what I am doing. The game is overall pretty simple to make, so let's get started. Before we begin, if you are new here or haven't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you do not miss my next video. We are on the way to 300 subscribers, so I'd love it if you would join this journey with me. Alrighty, I just went ahead and created a new project on Scratch where we'll be completing this tutorial, and I've also increased the size of this window so that way you guys could see what I'm doing a little bit better. Now before we get started, there are a couple of things I would like to explain. First, the resolution of all Scratch projects is 480 by 360 in a 4:3 aspect ratio. This will be important to know when we create our level design. Second, Scratch does have a built-in editor that you can use for creating your different backgrounds and images, but it's honestly very bare bones, and I only recommend using it for simple designs. So in this tutorial, I'm going to be using Graphic to create my level design. Now, another way you can create your level design is like I'm doing right here. Just simply Google the world's hardest game and just find it on any of these websites, Cool Math, Addicting Games, and so on and so forth, and you can just take a screenshot of the level. However, if you want it to be in better quality, then I recommend using some graphic software like I'm about to do right now. Alrighty guys, so now it is time to go ahead and create the level design. Now in order to do this, I'm going to be using software called Graphic, like I said I mentioned before. If you guys do not have any kind of graphic design software or just don't want to create the level and follow along and just want a download link to the image of the level so that you can just immediately import this in your Scratch project, I'll go ahead and leave a link to the document that I'm about to create. So as you can see, when we are creating the world's hardest game, I have the game on the left so that way I can kind of copy the colors over onto my graphic design software, and then I have my graphic design software on the right. And for those guys wondering, of course we need to make sure our canvas is the 480 by 360 resolution, as you can see that I have here. Now first things first, we obviously need to get the background, so I just went ahead and used the color picker to get the background, as you can see right here. And then I decided to just go ahead and, well, I made a couple of mistakes right here, as you can see with getting the green, but I decided to go ahead and just kind of start picking out the different elements of the level, like the green start and finish, as well as a little checkerboard. So first, I didn't really worry about getting like the exact dimensions correct. First, I just want to get the colors over from the real game into my software, and then as I kind of get them over, I can kind of modify them however I want. So as you can see right here, I just went ahead and created two basic rectangle checkpoints, kind of similar to the real deal. So as you can see now, I am kind of picking up the colors of the checkboard. As you can see, there's a slight difference in color. And then once again, I just went ahead and created a basic square. Right now, I'm not worrying about the exact dimensions. I'm just trying to get the colors over. And then once I have the colors over, I can start getting the exact dimensions. Alrighty, so as you can see, we now have all the colors that we need to create our game. We have the background color, we have the like the start and finish, that green color, and we also have the checker pattern. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the different elements of the level into different layers. So as you can see, I have a layer for the background, I have a layer which I'm editing right now, which is the main elements of the level, and then later on I'll be doing another layer that just has like the different black borders of the level, which we will get to that in just a second. But as you can see right now, I'm kind of just copying and pasting the checker design. I'm kind of looking at the level to the left just to make sure I get the right amount of squares. So as you can see in like the main portion of the level, you can see it's 10 squares by 4 squares, so it's a 10 by 4 checkerboard. So as you can see, that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm copying and pasting and flipping and doing kind of all the necessary stuff to get exactly the level that we have to the left, and it's surprisingly actually a pretty quick process. I mean, like once you have the if you have the level in a different window to the side like I do have here, it's pretty easy to kind of just copy and paste. You don't really need to be an expert with graphic design software to create the level. You can see we already are pretty much almost done. So as you can see, now that we have the checkerboard design to the exact scale, I'm now go ahead and taking the two green pieces of the board and I'm modifying them to be exactly the same scale to the checkerboard as they are in the real level. So as you can see, I'm kind of just modifying the height. I had to go ahead and fix a couple things, like the background was a little bit off center, so I went ahead and did that right there. And as you can see, I just went ahead and copy and pasted the green things so that we had one on each side. And as you can see, there's pretty much the basic level design. So now it's time to center it. As you can see, I'm doing here with the help of my software. It has some nice alignment in there. So we basically have the basic level designs. Now we just have to add the black borders. So now in a new layer, as you can see, I am just using the line tool in my software, and I am just drawing basic black lines. I actually forgot to create a new layer real quick, so I just went ahead and did that. And as you can see now, I'm just using the line tool to kind of outline the little black lines that you can see in the real game. So first we just have to outline kind of the perimeter of the board, and then once we do that, we can actually like adjust the thickness of the lines to be more, well, to be closer to the thickness as you can see in the real game. So as you can see, guys, we are done. We have the design of the level. I am just going to go ahead and quickly name each of my layers just corresponding to what they are, and then we are ready to export this image and import it into our Scratch project. Alrighty, so it is now time to go ahead and start to create our game. So first we need to go ahead and import the level design that we had just created. So make sure you have background selected, then go to the bottom left, scroll up to where it says import from computer, or it should say something like that, and then you go ahead and import the level like that, and as you can see, bam, there is the level perfectly optimized for Scratch since we created in a 480 by 360 resolution. So now let's go ahead and create our red square. So as you can see, I just create a new sprite. I'm going to call this the red square since this is our character that we can move. And so basically for the red square, when I create the sprites, I'm not going to really use the graphic design software because they're pretty simple enough that we can use the basic editor in Scratch. So as you can see, I'm just going to go ahead and create a basic square. A little tip, by the way, if you hold shift while you click and drag to create your square, it'll create a perfect square in Scratch. So as you can see, I just went ahead and created a basic red square, and then I'm looking to the right to see how my square looks in the project, and obviously I want to try and get the scaling and to make it look as good as possible. So I'm just going to go ahead and do some little tweaks like changing the size of the outline and also the size of the square itself to see how it looks in the project. And so yeah, there is our square. Alrighty, so now it is time to go ahead and start writing code for our project. So I think the first thing we need to do is get our square to move when you press the arrow key. So I went ahead and grabbed a when flag is clicked, which basically means when the program is run. And first we want the square to start on the starting position. So as you can see, where the X and Y is, where my cursor is, that basically is where the position of that sprite is on the screen. So we want to have the project go to those coordinates. Now as you can see, the coordinates from the GoTo script are already set to that position, so we do not need to modify them. Once we have that, we now need to go ahead and grab a forever loop because we want the code for the square to move to happen constantly, because we need to constantly check to see if the keys are being pressed. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab 4 if statements, 1 for each arrow key. Once we have our 4 if statements, we need to go to the sensing area of Scratch and we need to grab a key blank pressed. And as you can see, Scratch automatically has presets for each key, so we just need to go ahead and select up arrow, down arrow, left arrow, and right arrow. So basically for each of our key presses. So in order to get our square to move, here's a little lesson on coordinates for those of you who do not know. Now, Scratch is a coordinate-based program, which means that this canvas where our project is running on is a coordinate grid with X coordinates and Y coordinates. X coordinates are horizontal based, so basically going from left to right is the X coordinate, and the Y coordinates are vertical, so that would be going up and down. So obviously for our up and down arrows we need to change the Y, and for the left and right arrows we need to change the X. So as you can see, when we go up, as you go up in a coordinate plane, the Y values increase, so we want to change the Y by a positive number, and when we are going down we want to change Y by a negative number, since as you go down in a coordinate plane, the X values decrease. Same thing goes for left and right. When we are going right, the X value is increasing the more we move to the right, and the more we move to the left, the X value decreases. So as you can see, I went ahead and for the up arrow, I'm changing the Y by 3, mainly because I just use 3 as the basic number, because I think that's the same number I use in my program, and it's about the speed that we want. And as you can see, look at that, our square is moving now. Okay, so now our square moves every time we press our arrow keys, which is great, but there's one problem. As you can see, if we try to go outside of the level, you can see that the square is successfully able to ignore kind of the borders, and as you can see, the square can pretty much just go anywhere we want on the screen, and obviously we do not want that to happen unless if you are making like one of those hacked versions of the world's hardest game where pretty much you take away all the rules. But yeah, in this tutorial, because obviously I'm trying to follow the rules of the real game, we do not want our square to go out of bounds. So how do we fix that? Well, first we need to determine when our square is touching one of the borders, and to do that there's a simple little trick that I use in my real game that I'm going to go ahead and show you right now. So first we need to go grab another set of if statements for each of our arrow keys, and we need to go ahead and set them to the black color of our border, basically where it says if touching color, and then we want to select the black color that we are using our border. So basically we need an if touching color black statement. That is the easiest way we can get our square to tell if it is touching the black borders. So now that we have code that can basically tell if the square is touching the black borders, how do we actually make the square stop going forward? Well, pretty simple. We need to go ahead and grab another set of change Y or change X depending on which arrow key we are affecting, and we need to change it to the opposite value or the reciprocal value. Well, not quite the reciprocal in the sense that it's not a fraction, but as you can see, if we are moving up, instead of changing Y by 3, when it's touching the color, we want to change it by -3. And then for when we go down, because it's changed by -3, we want to then change it by 3, and basically so on and so forth. And as you can see, using this simple trick, now our square can no longer leave the board. It is confined into the board, so people cannot cheat. Alrighty, so now our square can move and not go out of bounds, but we are missing our enemies, you know, the blue circles that you want to avoid. So that is what we are going to want to go ahead and create next. So as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and create once again another sprite, and just like with the square, I just need to change the color to blue, and we still want a black border just like in the real game. And once again, we can use our little shift and click to make sure it's a perfect circle, because we don't want it to be like an oval shape. We want to make sure it's a perfect circle. And whoops, I accidentally had the square tool selected. Let me go ahead and fix that real quickly. And yeah, there we go. We now have a circle. And once again, you might have to do a little bit of tweaking to kind of get it to look to scale just like on the real game. And because this enemy, well, in the real game, because there are two circles, like, well, you'll see the kind of the pattern is, depending on how the circles move on a specific level, you can kind of sometimes use more than one circle in a specific sprite if they are moving at the same time and to the same coordinates, just a slightly different, like, Y or X value. Well, you'll kind of see what I'll mean once I finish the sprite. So now we have one of our enemies, we need to make it move. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and grab a when flag is clicked. And first we want the enemy to start in these coordinates. So as you can see, once again, I'm going to where the coordinates are at the, well, kind of middle right of the screen. And I need a go to that specific value, and then to actually get the enemy to move or go from one side of the board to the other. Once again, I'm going to grab a forever loop, and Scratch has this nice block called glide, and then specific amount of seconds, or basically that just controls the speed to another set of coordinates. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and drag the blue circles to the other set of coordinates that I want them to go to, and then basically because these blue circles are moving horizontally, we only want to change the X values. The Y values we want to leave alone, or else the circles are going to go up a little bit or down a little bit. So as you can see, I went ahead and grabbed the new X value, I think it's 93, and typed that into there, and then once again I duplicated that. In order to get the circles to move back to the starting position, we once again need to get the starting coordinates. So as you can see, when we go ahead and click the flag, our circles now glide back and forth across the board. Now, we might need to affect the number of seconds a little bit to get kind of the exact speed that we are looking for. So as you can see, you might have to do a little bit of playing around. You can see 2 seconds, that's a little too slow. 1.5 seconds, that's a little bit better, but still too slow. I found that 1.25 seconds is the most accurate speed to the real game in Scratch. So as you can see, once we kind of do 1.25, you can see we have one set of our circles moving, so now we just need to go ahead and duplicate that sprite, and as you can see, when we duplicate the sprite, we get the same code. We now need the other set of circles that start at the other side of the board and glide to the other side of the board. Only these circles are a little bit lower in the coordinate plane, so once again, we need to modify the Y a little bit to be lower, and because this is starting at the other side of the board, we want this to go to X 93 and glide to X negative 91, so we just need to tweak the X values a little bit like I'm doing here. And yeah, as you can see, once we tweak everything, we now have our enemies. They move across the screen. So now we have our enemies, which is great. They move across the board just like we want them to. However, they do not do anything. As you can see, if we move our square around, yeah, you can see the enemies do not kill us and have us spawn back at the beginning of the level. So we need to go ahead and write some code to do that. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my square sprite. We're going to go ahead and start a new script, so I'm going to get a when flag is clicked. And just a little side note, if you right click and hit clean up, Scratch has like a built-in editor to kind of, if like your code is all messy, you can kind of right click and clean it up just to put the scripts in kind of a stack to clean everything up. So anyway, we now need a new forever and an if statement because we want this project to constantly check if we are touching enemies. And just like what we did for when we were touching the color, we can either do touching color blue, or a way I think is a little more effective is if we actually say touch the specific sprite. So as you can see, if we get the touching script with a drop down menu, we can go ahead and set it to the specific sprite, and as you can see with an or block, we can now say if we are touching enemy 1 or enemy 2. And basically when this happens, we want the square to go back to start. Now, a little cool thing, a little nice touch I think to add to make the project a little more like, to add more attention to detail is when the square dies, it kind of fades out before it spawns back. So to achieve this effect, we are going to go ahead and grab a repeat, and we want to set the value to that to 25, so it repeats as 25, and then we want to change the ghost effect by 4. So this is just some simple little code. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically it will just slowly fade the square out. And then once we fade the square out, we want it to go back to start. So I'm going to go ahead and set it back to the original coordinates and put that at the end of the animation script, just like that. So basically when the square hits the blue circle now, it'll fade out and go back to start, and then once we go back to start, we can show the square again. So we want to cancel out the ghost effect and set it to 0. And I'm just going to go ahead and put set ghost effect to 0 in the when flag is clicked, so that way if you click the flag in the middle of playing while your player is fading away, we don't want the ghost effect to kind of stay and stuck, and it could cause a bug. So as you can see, now when a player moves around and touches the enemies, you can see it goes around. However, there was one slight problem. While your player is dying, you can still move. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and create a new variable and call it dying. We can set it to this sprite only because we don't need any other sprite to see this variable. And basically this variable will be kind of like a boolean where we can determine if our sprite is in the middle of fading out. So as you can see, I set dying to 0 when we click the flag. However, once the player touches an enemy, we're going to set the variable to 1, and then as the animation finishes, set it back to 0. So basically this variable will check to see if the player is going through the animation of dying. Now once we do that, we're going to go ahead and wrap all of our code for moving the player in an if statement, and then we need to say if dying is set to 0, then allow our player to move. So this is just kind of some simple little code. Technically, you don't really need all this code, but this just is all like to make the attention to detail, to make the project really polished. So as you can see, when our player touches an enemy, it fades out. You cannot move while it is fading out, and it spawns right back at the beginning. Okay, so now, just like in the real game, let's make it so that we can actually see how many deaths we have, or how many times we have died. Now, just like in the real game, what I'm going to go ahead and do is create a little black toolbar that at the top of the screen that will kind of hold like the information, like the level and the deaths. And so basically I'm just going to go ahead and create a black rectangle, as you can see here. I'm going to put it at the top of the screen, obviously, because we want it to be at the top of the screen. And then let's just go ahead and set the coordinates. You can actually add these coordinates right here, and we'll set it to 0, 0 because we want this to be in the middle of the screen. And as you can see, there is our black toolbar at the top of the screen. So once we have that, we can go ahead and create some text. As you can see, I'm going to get the white text for the kind of the headings. So as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and type in level, and that level that will be at the top of the left, and then we will type in deaths at the top right. Now we need to create two variables, one that will keep track of the level that we are on, and one that will keep track of the number of deaths. Now as you can see, when you create a variable in Scratch, and you can have it show with the little check mark. If it's blue, that means it's showing, and you can also click on the check mark to hide it. Now obviously we want these variables to show so we can see what they look like, and as you can see, if you actually double click on a variable, you can change the way it looks. So as you can see, I double clicked it to just kind of show the number. So as you can see, and I position that at the top right. Now I'm just doing a little bit of tweaking just to make the little project look a little bit nicer, but yeah, as you can see, we just go ahead and drag and drop that variable basically wherever we want it on the screen, and obviously we want it to be right next to the text that says death, so I'm just going to go ahead and position it there. So now that I have both of those variables in the right position, now we need to make code that actually changes them. So first, when we click the flag, we obviously want to reset everything, so we want the level to start with level 1, so we're going to go ahead and set level to level 1, and we want the deaths to reset to 0. So as you can see, level set to 1 and deaths are set to 0. Now in order to actually change the value of deaths, we just simply need to drag a change deaths by 1 right at the end of our animation code. So as you can see, when we move our square around and we die by hitting one of the blue circles, you can see our death counter increases by 1, and you go back to the start, obviously, like we had before. So as you can see, now you can die and see the number of deaths you have. Alrighty guys, I know this tutorial is taking quite a bit of time, but I'm hoping that you guys are enjoying it and are learning and are having fun. So now we pretty much just have one last thing to do, and that is to determine when we have completed the level, or basically when our square gets to the other side of the board. Now, in the real game, it's pretty much just determined when, as soon as you touch the green on the other side. So the way I'm going to do this code is, it depends on the level that you're doing. For this specific level, all I need to do is make sure the X position of the square increases past the point that I have it now. It's basically once it touches the green. So as you can see, I basically went ahead and dragged the square to where I wanted to basically mark as completing the level, and I got the X coordinate from the middle right of the screen, and now we are creating a new script that we're going to say forever, and we're going to wait until if the X position of the square is greater than this value, basically, because remember, the farther right you go, the greater your X value is. So basically when it's greater than this value, we can mark this level as complete. Now obviously the code in here depends. If you're creating the whole game, you would say maybe like broadcast next level and change level by 1, but because in this tutorial I'm just teaching you how to make one level, I'm just going to go ahead and put some code in here that basically just makes text pop up that says you when, as in like you complete this first level. So as you can see, I'm just pretty much creating a new spray. I'm just going to add some text in that just says you when, and basically once this text shows up, you'll see kind of like once the square completes the level, I'm just going to make it so that this text will, like when the flag is clicked, it will hide, and then once you complete the level, it will show. Alrighty guys, so just to kind of show you what I was doing, you can see I'm going to go ahead and complete the level right now, and as you can see, once we touch the green on the other side, you can see it says you when, and then I've added code to stop the project. Basically, the stop all means stop everything that has happened. So yeah guys, as you can see, this is pretty much concludes the tutorial. That is pretty much how you make a level of the world's hardest game in Scratch. Obviously the process will be a little bit different depending on what level you are making, but this is pretty much the basic thing you need to do for each level. Obviously this is just how you create level 1. But pretty much it's the same process for creating more levels, just maybe moving the circles a little bit differently and having the square go to a different position. But yeah guys, this pretty much concludes my little short tutorial on the world's hardest game. If you guys want to go ahead and check out the finished project, I will have a link to that in the description, and maybe I'll have it in a pinned comment as well. Probably just a link in the description, because I don't know if I can fit all this in the pinned comment. So yeah, anyway guys, this pretty much just concludes the tutorial. So as always, if you enjoyed this tutorial, learned something new, be sure to give it a like and subscribe so you do not miss my next video. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!